Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Now, the late Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa will be laid to rest this morning. It's a special Category 2 funeral, which is set to get underway at the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Ground in Dondotha in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, Mthethwa died at a Paris hotel last month, aged 58. While police are still probing the circumstances surrounding his death, at that time of his death, he was the South African ambassador to France. Our very own Ziyanda Ngcobo is at the Mthethwa home in Mngambi and will be joining us for those conversations. Along that, we also have from the sports complex, Xoli Mngambi, as well as Silithiwe Ndlovu. Let's kick things off with Ziyanda Ngcobo, who is in Mngambi at the family home, and we get just a sense of build-up, so to speak, as the family continues to mourn the passing of the late ambassador. Good morning, Ziyanda.
A very good morning to you, Arabile, and the mortal remains and I suppose the spirit of Nathi Mthethwa arrived back home late yesterday afternoon, where the cortege from the Ngcobo in Mpangeni made its way to his homestead, KwaMthethwa, here in Mngambi. This morning, it's a different kind of day that has arrived for the members of the Mthethwa and Buthelezi families as they prepare to lay one of their own to rest. And as my colleague and I, Morena, will show you, they are already digging up the grave of Mthethwa, he will be laid to rest at the Mthethwa homestead, and you can see those preparations are well underway. And so far as what's going to be happening here, we understand as the family prepares to lay him to rest, and Arabile, he is in the rendezvous that he was brought back to yesterday afternoon for those prayers and the final moment for the family to say goodbye. President Cyril Ramaphosa is also expected to arrive at the Mthethwa homestead before heading to the sports complex where the special official funeral Category 2 will get underway. So the cortege will leave with, or rather Ramaphosa will join the family cortege bound for the stadium. And so there's already a lot of movement in the Mthethwa yard. You can see there's also draping that is being done, and there'll be a prayer service at 7:30 this morning before the family leaves. Of course, they'd also have to, again, remove his mortal remains and also speak to his spirits and announce that there's going to still be another ceremony that is undertaken, this time by the government, as those preparations are well underway. Ambassador Mthethwa receiving that special category funeral because of how distinguished he was representing the country in France. And so there will be a specific procedures that take place at the stadium. But for now, this is still by and large, the work of the family. And as I've said, we've already seen some members of the Presidential Protection Service. They're already here, which is also giving us a confirmation and indication that the president is going to start off here before heading to where our colleagues Xoli Mngambi and Silithiwe Ndlovu are. You can see the smoke billowing in the air. There's been meat that is being prepared throughout since yesterday, and those preparations for his final resting place firmly underway here at Mngambi, where Nathi Mthethwa, ambassador to France, will be laid to rest. And that's where we leave things for now. And let me take you now to our colleagues, Xoli Mngambi and Silithiwe, for an understanding of what's taking place at the stadium as we edge ever so closely towards that 9 o'clock start. Xoli, good morning.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, good morning to you. Having painted a picture of what's going on at the homestead in Mngambi, and I speak about Mngambi, let's paint a picture for you firstly about this small village in northern KwaZulu-Natal, the neighboring villages of, or the neighboring towns of Ntseleni, Mtubatuba, Pongola. These are all the signposts you will see leading up to where we are. This is the Dondotha Sports Ground, very small area, and this is where Nathi Mthethwa would have held one or two ceremonies as part and parcel of the development of the community, because that's what he was remembered for. And I'm painting this background about the village boy who was no ordinary man. The people of this area looked up to Nathi Mthethwa to say, if he can do it, and therefore it is possible for other children who grew up here. And the person who probably is going to put that best is my colleague, Silithiwe Ndlovu. She's with me right now. Silithiwe, let's you and I have a conversation, because you've been with this story since the news broke. You have been speaking to the family members. You've been speaking to the villagers. Talk to us about how they remembered Nathi Mthethwa. I paint this picture of him having schooled here and, in a way, also giving back to this community the bit that he could. How do the people of Ngcobo remember Nathi Mthethwa?
And I think really, Xoli, that's the most important question. It's how he will be remembered, and not how he died, of course. The conversations that we've had with many community members, family members, comrades, they remember him as someone that was quite strong, bold, reserved in many instances, of course, and also stating, of course, as you've mentioned, that he was quite passionate about community development. We know even in this community, he gave back in many instances. So a lot of people here stating that they will remember him for his work, but also for his character, for the type of person that he was. But I think also quite concerning when you're looking at this community, questions still remain, of course, regarding the circumstances surrounding his death. A lot of people, even just yesterday, and this is despite him now being back home, there are still many questions, Xoli, when you are looking at how he actually died.
Yeah, and I know that you have prepared some of those conversations you would have had with the family, and so for the time being, we're going to try and see if studio has those sound bites prepared for us, because, as you say, there still is no finality as to what the cause of death was for Nathi Mthethwa. So perhaps let's take a listen to that, and once we have those conversations, we'll link it back here. Silithiwe Ndlovu and I will continue the conversation. Let's take a listen to what some of the family members have had to say.
We had always welcomed the decision by the South African Police Services and the government, after the minister announced it. We were never opposed to it. So as to reasons why it's been reduced to one, I can't really comment on that because we don't know the technicalities of that. But of course, as a family, if the government and the SAPS want to send representative, we still welcome that very much. It just shows that they value my father's contributions, and they would want to get clarity as much as the family and everyone else that's in mourning with us. We trust that the French authorities will do what's necessary, and they'll give us a full report and brief, and we'll take it from there.
So that's the eldest son of Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa there. And that conversation really is about the 5 SAPS investigators that were meant to be deployed to France to probe the death of Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa, hand in glove with the French authorities. But of course, we know that that number was reduced from 5 to just 1 officer. And we know that he will, it seems, no longer longer be probing the death, but rather be receiving a report or engaging in a meeting with the French authorities. So at this particular moment, it seems as if, of course, there's still quite a number of questions that do remain, not only just from the family, but also from the ANC. So let's have a listen to what Nhlakanipho Ntombela had to say regarding the very same situation.
We can't speak of the SAPS and what determined them changing their numbers, but I think that the work done by the French authorities has given a report which the family has got satisfied with. Hence, they had a death certificate, and I'm assuming that the autopsy report will reveal also what would have transpired. So far, in our engagement with the family, there's been no sign of unhappiness, especially from delegation coming from outside. So hopefully, whatever else will come out of that process will be the proper closure of what would have transpired. What is important for us now is to prepare for a dignified send-off.
The ANC states that there's no unhappiness coming from the family, but they still, it seems at this particular moment, still have many questions, and they are also not the only ones. Of course, we know that there's much speculation on social media regarding what actually transpired. Of course, the questions do stem from those allegations. I mean, if you consider the fact that French media at the very beginning had indicated that one of his cell phones was found at a park. I do believe that stated it was the Bois de Boulogne park. But we would then later on hear that those allegations were actually false. His cell phone was not found at that particular park. So there's a number of questions that do still remain when you are looking at this particular situation. But I do want to continue engaging with my colleague Xoli Mngambi. Of course, when you are looking at this situation, we know that there's a number of rituals that we've seen being performed over the past few days. Even more rituals said to be performed even today, Xoli?
Indeed, Silithiwe. We had a conversation with the government spokesperson, Mr. William Baloyi, and he was saying that once the cortege arrives at the sports ground here, there is a particular area that has a rectangular shape that is covered in white. Once the coffin gets there, they will firstly remove the ANC draping around it, and they will put on the South African flag to signify that this is now the government taking over, because it is a special official funeral category 2. And before the coffin then enters that particular entrance, which will be white rectangular area or entrance, the family will continue to perform the rituals, almost as if to guide the spirit of Nathi Mthethwa, much like what has been done in France, where the family conducted that important ritual of taking his spirit, bringing it back home. This is also going to it's going to happen here as well. But Silithiwe, it's important for us to sort of move the conversation forward away from the circumstances of his death, because this is actually the final chapter for him and his family. And I think the first glimpses that we saw of his widow, the wife, who has been said to be quite stoic, very strong, as this news came whilst she was in France all alone until her brother joined her. And she has been sort of available to lead this process because she is fluent in French, and so nothing could go amiss. And the understanding is that she actually was quite instrumental in ensuring that the body comes home almost in record time, if you will, because the brother was expressing, as I was reading that article on News 24, that had it not been for her, perhaps this would not have happened as quickly as it has been. But the reason I want to talk about Silithiwe Mthethwa, the widow of Nathi Mthethwa, is that you would have had that chance to see her when the body arrived at King Shaka Airport. This is the final chapter for her, having lost her husband under tragic circumstances. How would you describe her demeanor? How did she look? Is this something that she perhaps is slowly accepting now?
I think one of the observations, and we were just talking about this even with our other colleagues, she does seem quite strong at this particular moment. But of course, you can see that she is quite devastated. She's grieving, not just her, even her other family members, her son, the Mthethwa relatives, they are also grieving at this particular moment. Even yesterday, we had a conversation with them, and they stated that today is the beginning of closing a very painful and very unexpected chapter. So I think for her, really, at this particular moment, there's no telling really in terms of how she's feeling. Because obviously we haven't had that one-on-one conversation with her. But from the observations that we've had, she does seem quite strong. But also at some point you can see that she is grieving, but she has received much support, not just coming from, the comrades of Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa, not just other family members, but also support coming from the community of Mngambi, which of course we know Xoli, Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa had quite a bit of work when you are looking at this community. So when you are looking at the wife then, at this particular moment, I can only imagine how she's feeling. I can only imagine, Xoli.
It is a difficult chapter, Silithiwe Ndlovu, particularly because those investigative reports from France, they were preliminary reports. So the final, or the reports that will bring finality to this, those have yet to come. And if they come back and state something completely different to what the French authorities have told us, well, that we will have to learn at that late stage. But right now, this is indeed the final chapter. And as we throw forward now to what is likely going to happen, the people have yet to arrive here. Of course, we are the early risers as members of the media, and so we expect those arrivals to come somewhere around 8 o'clock. I think by the hour of 8, we should be seeing this place getting really busy, because the people should be seated by 9 o'clock, and we are going to continue with these reflections, Silithiwe Ndlovu and myself, including Ziyanda Ngcobo, because that particular journey from home to the sports grounds, which is the funeral service area or the service venue, that is going to also be quite crucial. We're going to bring you all of that, and so stay with us as we continue with this special broadcast, laying to rest Nathi Mthethwa, South Africa's ambassador to France.